folks, this is Available Moxie, and I just want to talk briefly about the Yakuza character pack. It includes the Micro SMG, the Katana Melee, and the Yakuza Perk deck. So to start out with the Katana, I've got some footage of me just playing solo Overkill with the Sociopath Perk deck, messing around. And as you can see, it is fairly effective, at least on Overkill with Sociopath. But the new Katana is kind of the new king of melee. It kind of changes every time there's a perk deck, or every time there's a weapon pack or character pack that comes out. They give us a new overpowered melee, and this is the latest King of the Hill here for that. It has the highest DPS in the game. It does good damage. It attacks very, very quickly. Pretty much it's going to be your go-to unless either A, you need concealment, or B, you're running something like a muscle deck with hostage taker and you want some way to get hostages. You can still use the buzzer to stun them and take them hostage. So in that case you might give this a pass, but otherwise if you do have the pack and you have the Katana, it's pretty much the go-to melee. But I don't think it's worth buying the pack for by itself, because melee in Payday 2 is still just not that huge of a deal. And you could do fairly similar stuff to this with any melee, really. So it shouldn't be the reason that you buy the pack. And as far as power goes, it's really the only powerful item in it. The Micro Uzi and the perk deck are not particularly good. So with the Uzi, it's listed at 32 concealment, but I'm fairly certain this is a bug and it's going to be adjusted down to 30 total. This is because the way that it gets to 30 is using an attachment that's no stock, and it states that it's +1, but actually gives +3. And that's probably a bug, because nothing else has had over 30 since Overkill nerfed everything that had over 30 down to 30 during Crime Fest last year. So it's kind of hard to say if that will even keep that one benefit that it has. Assuming that it doesn't, it's definitely just another bad SMG for the pile. If it never gets fixed, then hey, at least you could take it and, equip a better primary, so it would have that going for it. But that's pretty faint praise. If that's the best that you could think of doing with a weapon, then it's probably not that good. It does hit 40 damage with very high concealment, but no accuracy, and it's just not particularly good. The Compact 5 is probably better. Not as high concealment, but if you want a 40 damage SMG, it has higher pickup, so it's going to be more efficient. So that brings us to the perk deck, which also is not very good. And this is mainly for two reasons. The first reason is that the Berserker playstyle isn't particularly good anymore. And the second is that even if you want to play Berserker, this perk deck does not do it particularly well, which is pretty amazing considering that's the only thing that it does. So point one, the reason why Berserker isn't good anymore is because the cost associated with Berserker has increased. The reason Berserker was so good was that back before Crime Fest, there was really no way to control your hit points. The only way to get hit points back were being traded from custody or using a medkit. And you would typically only use a medkit on your third down. So most of the time you were sitting at 10% health. You never really made a conscious decision to do it. It's just something that happened. And since you were that way anyway, and there was no other way to play the game that could change that, everybody took Berserker because you were going to be at 10% health whether you want to or not. When Crime Fest came out, we got some new ways to control it with first aid kits and certain things like that. But even then, it was kind of more of an interesting decision because there may not be enough first aid kits for everybody, or maybe you want to have a little extra because if somebody on your team is Armor Berserker, they don't need to use up your first aid kits, and now there's more for other people. Or you may not always have somebody that has first aid kits. If you're a tech forcer, you're not bringing first aid kits, and if somebody else doesn't, well, it's nice to have Berserker there. So it got a little bit better. We got a little bit better ways to control our health, but they were largely tied to resources. There were other ways. Infiltrator had that way to gain health via melee, and Gambler did exist, but they weren't quite good enough or strong enough to really make the health meta a thing. So because of that, Berserker sort of stayed relevant. The problem is that with the perk deck rebalance now, health has become something that you can actively manage. And you can do it without using resources, and this is the key here. Before, you would decide to use Berserker because you wanted to play in a certain way that was very low resource. You could go Tech Forcer, and you could have fully loaded, and you could bring double ammo bags and then live off of pickups and never use ammo and never use medkits unless you went down 3 times. And not only were you effective, but you weren't using up any resources, and you were giving a lot to your team, and that's really valuable. But now you can play that way without being Berserker. You could be valuable to your team and never use resources as a muscle tech forcer with, fully loaded and hostage taker and regenerating 9% of your health every 5 seconds. You can live that life, never use resources, and still have a ton of HP and still utilize your health pool. So because of that, the choice to go Berserker is now a lot worse than it was before. Because before, you weren't necessarily saying, I would like to give up my health pool. You were saying, well, there are advantages to giving it up. It's not that I don't want the health, it's that my options are either to not have the health and have more first aid kits for everybody else, or for me to have the health. Well, I'll give it up, for that, because that's what I'm there to do as a tech forcer. There's not enough for everybody, so that's how we'll do it, and nowadays it's not like that. Like I said, you don't need to make that decision anymore. You're not giving up something in exchange for something else. You're giving away something that the game is giving to you for free. That health is yours for free. You could just melee somebody and get it back, or you could just wait with muscle and get it. There's no cost associated with managing your health anymore. So it's just a flat out bad deal to give it up. And that's really the problem, and why it's not particularly good. The second problem is that even if you do want to make that choice to intentionally give up health that doesn't cost you any resources to get, you're still better off doing it with Infiltrator or Armor, because the main problem with doing that and giving up your health pool is you're cutting your effective hit points in half or more, depending on what build you're using. And because of that, you will have issues staying alive. Every time that I tested it, when I did, muscle with regenerating health, like an enemy would flank me, or I would, go out of position, or I'd make a mistake, or I'd get tased, or whatever, and it wasn't a big deal. I was usually at full health. I would take damage, depending on how bad it was. I might take a fourth of my health, or even half of my health in damage, but then all I have to do is back up, regenerate that health back, good to go. When you play Berserker, so one of those things would happen, and then I would just die. I would just be dead, and that would be that. And it's not that I don't know how to play Payday 2, and I don't know how to play with Berserker, because I played that way for a long time. I played that way before Crime Fest came out. And even when after Crime Fest, I still used Berserker quite a bit. I was still always an armor guy, and I really liked armor. A lot of my solo runs I did armored, like Hotline Miami, I did in armor. So I understand how to play that way, and I know how to do it, and I can do it, and I've done it. I did a Death Wish Dr. Miserable, where I only went down twice from damage. Everything else was cloakers, and never used a medkit with Berserker. So I know how to do it. It's just doing that is a lot harder now than doing other things. And because most people in an average game, even me playing with some very, very good players, Virus and Lavender, don't tell them I said that, but when they play Berserker, they go down. That's why we have people with Inspire. That's why we bring 2 Inspires, specifically because we know that they're going to go down. Whereas nowadays, with Muscle and Infiltrator things, you don't even go down. You don't even go down at all. It's just way, way better. So you really want as much effective hit points as you possibly can get these days. So when you take the Yakuza perk deck, not only are you giving up all of the EHP that you're giving up by giving up your health pool, you're also giving up extra armor or extra damage reduction for effective armor that you could have gotten if you used another deck. And what are you getting in exchange? Armor regen? Armor regen is like a third-rate bonus. It's like Rogue Fast Swap. It's kind of nice to have. It's not something that you want a perk deck based around just that. I think Overkill really overvalues it, because this in Hitman, they thought that armor regeneration was so good on Hitman that they had to apply a penalty to armor. They were like, well, we can't give somebody that much armor regen without a penalty. It's like, well, no, you could have, and it still would have been bad. If Hitman didn't have an armor penalty and it was just straight up regeneration always on, even if it was 60% regeneration always on at all times, and that's all it did, it would still be a bad deck. because armor regeneration is just not that good. You're out of if you're regenerating armor, you're out of combat anyway. You're not being shot. You're safe anyway. Yes, there are very, very rare edge cases where you can regenerate, under fire or in other situations, and having it regenerate 0.5 seconds faster would have saved you. But the other 95% of the time, just having more health will save you. So yeah, it turns out that it's not good. And the other thing is that the playstyle just isn't particularly good these days either, because the whole point of Payday 2 is to survive a certain amount of time while stuff happens. So it's like there's this drill, and well, you just have to survive until the drill is done. And that's basically 90% of Payday 2 is survive until X is done, and then go here and survive until that's done. And that means that the best thing that you can do is survive, not killing police. I'm not going to say that killing police faster isn't good. It certainly is. It's just that it's not as good as other things. The main point is survival. Police are typically, or pretty much all the enemies in the game are typically more threatening up close than they are far away. So yes, there is advantages to killing them from far away. The problem is that the faster you kill them, the faster they respawn. If they're far away from you, then they're probably close to the respawn. So a lot of times, letting them get a little closer than killing them at medium range or whatever, it's not really hurting you in any way. As long as they don't get to the objective, or as long as they don't flank your cover, it's really not a huge difference. Most of the time playing Payday, you're not going to die because you went on a cover and then fired at people, and then what you were firing at killed you. Because you were looking at it and you saw it. Like, if you did that, like, this dying because you stayed out of cover too long, like, you're not going to do that past 100 hours, right? Like, you know how much damage you can take before you have to go back into cover. You die because you got tased. You die because you got flanked. You die because you were caught out of position. You died because you tried to revive your friend and ran through fire. You died because you turned a corner and there was a dozer there. Those are the things that kill you, and those are the things that having a whole bunch of extra health prevents you from dying to, and having a whole lot of extra damage probably won't help you against. So yeah, having done the berserker thing, and being somebody that could do it, it's a lot easier just not to. And that's just how it is. The price of going berserker right now is too damn high. So that's why what I would like out of the Yakuza deck is for it to give you something to reduce that price. Like, as the lower your health is, the more damage reduction you get. Well, hey, now that's kind of cool, like, because now I can go berserker, but then I get damage reduction, so the cost of giving up that health pool isn't as high, and that would have been something cool that they could have done, but unfortunately, they think armor regeneration is a top-tier thing that you could build a perk deck around, and you really can't. Did you guys even know that Crook gets an armor regeneration bonus? Yeah, it does. You probably don't know that because you never noticed. But yes, it's just not all that good. Like, it's one thing to have one person spend 8 points in Bulletproof Ace to get it for the entire group. It's another thing to ask somebody to give up all of their perk deck for just that, and 10% movement speed. It's just not worth. So that pretty much wraps up for this review. As to whether or not to buy the pack, I'm not going to make that decision for you. If you're looking for, if you're the type of person that's buying DLC for, like, because you want to get the best guns, you want to have, the stuff that's going to be practically useful, this is not a very practically useful deck. The Katana is really good, but I'm betting if you wait until the next DLC pack, the way that they've been handling melee, they'll just probably come out with either a reskin of it or another overpowered melee to put into their next weapon pack. And even then, it's still melee and Payday, which isn't a huge deal. The Uzi, if it doesn't get nerfed, it'll be okay. If it does get nerfed, it'll just be another one for the pile. If that concealment, gets fixed or not fixed, depending on whether or not it's a bug, which I don't think there's been any official word on. And the perk deck is utterly forgettable. Probably the most practical use for the perk deck, other than just, messing around and having fun, if you're one of those people, would probably be just to unlock it and then never spend the point, so that when a good perk deck comes out, you can actually play it right away without having to grind 16, or I think it's 13.7 million EXP, which is the reason why this video is being released Monday instead of Thursday when it came out, because I had to find the time to grind the EXP so that I could get a deck, confirm the fact that it was terrible, and then tell you guys that it's terrible. So anyway, that about wraps it up. I'm going to be trying to do these videos as DLC comes out. The last time I did a video like this, You guys seem to like it, so leave comments, thoughts, questions, agree, disagree. If I'm an idiot, let me know, and either in the YouTube comments or in the Reddit thread, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. So until next time, this is Sacred Billy Goat, aka Vadable Moxie, and happy heisting.